So I'd like to apologize. I didn't even realize this happened. Something came up and I totally forgot about it, and I was right in the middle of it. Or actually, I just started it and just started getting to the good parts, and I just cut off. And I apologize profusely for this. It's the reading of First Maccabees, and I will pick this up and finish it. And I think it's, if you know any Jewish people out there, because I know Jewish people they have the celebration of Hanukkah, but they don't have the text in their Bibles. I don't know how often they read Maccabees or if they do at all. But if you know anyone, when I finish this, or when I pick up and start doing enough of it, send it to them. I'd want to know what they think about it. Because there's many people that like listening to stuff better than reading it, and I don't know how comfortable Jewish people would be with having like a Catholic or an Orthodox Bible in their house. And I've never seen the Maccabees come in any other form than in the texts of our scriptures. But this is a good writing to read, and Hanukkah is coming up, and we should remember that celebration was started because of the holiness of the people and their resistance against an occupying force and a brutal force that was trying to slay them. People could make the argument for the slavery into Babylon as not being a bad thing. As Babylon, they let you keep your religion. They were multicultural. They didn't execute Joachim. He actually lived a very good, and when he was brought to Babylon, they took the chains off, and he lived a very comfortable life, and he was respected as a king. But he was just a hostage. But that's hostages. Back in the day, they kind of were part of the family almost. They weren't they weren't kept in a pit. I mean, there were people who were like dragged to Rome or dragged to these places in chains and then beheaded or thrown in a cell, but that's more like a prisoner. But the hostage was in your house. Very strange. But when when Antiochus IV, Antiochus Epiphanes, even his name is a blasphemy. Epiphanes, he's calling himself God. Came and was slaughtering the people, and using these weird weights and stones to remove the people, encouraging people to do this to remove their circumcision, the marks of circumcision, and killing a woman and her child for having him circumcised or for observing the law, killing anyone that observed the law or didn't burn incense to Zeus. And he slaughtered a pig in the temple and put the statue of Zeus there. And the abomination of desolations, or the abomination of desolations, desolation of abominations. Or, however, I think it's in both forms in the Bible in the text. And this is one account of abomination of desolations, or desolation of abominations. I forget how it's worded. Shame on me. I should know that. But I will pick up reading the Maccabees, and I read it from one of my favorite translations of the Maccabees, which is the New American Bible. And I realize it's not the NASB, it's not an Orthodox translation, an Eastern Orthodox translation, but it is a Roman Catholic translation. It's a good one. It conveys the sense in which is reading, because the Jews in that did not use, like they use Hashem today, or they used Adonai in the past. They used heaven in place of the name of God. And I believe it's a very interesting book and a very action-packed book, and probably the funnest book of the Bible. And it also kind of makes you proud, like, yeah, these guys, it's almost like the Revolutionary War stories of, like, overcoming the odds, and the better, well-trained enemy was defeated by the people who actually were fighting for something they truly believed in. And they set up these gymnasiums and outlawed Judaism, and people were living, I think they were called the rabbits, actually, because they lived in these holes, like these caves and everything. And the caves were actually discovered, and then the caves of letters were found, which were used in the Maccabean times, but then used again in the Bar Kokhba times. And Shimon Bar Kokhba, or Simon Bar Kokhba, was a poor, excuse, Johnny-come-lately wannabe Judas Maccabeus. Judas Maccabeus, the first guerrilla warfare, and even psychological warfare, part where he backed up into this almost peninsula on a piece of marshy land, and so his men could not run, and they fought, and they pushed their way out and fought the guys. They thought they were trapping them in, but with that willingness to fight, they pushed out, and the tactics of them dispersing into the land and coming back up and striking his forces, these hit and run squads, these really light brigades basically, and it was devastating to the oppressor, and the oppressor couldn't hold the land. Simon Bar Kokhba did not have the charisma or the stamina or the battle hardness as Judas did, and Judas Maccabeus did not curse God. He did not cut off his finger. He did not become a David Koresh, Jim Jones type character that Simon Bar Kokhba did. And if anything, the religious leaders were probably against him because the people were for him. And whereas you had some psycho zealots and Sakari E that were for him, and I think it was which rabbi was it? It wasn't Gamaliel. It wasn't. It was Rabbi Akiva, I believe, that was for him initially, and then he kind of turned out to be a false prophet. Him and his false messiah became kind of false prophets, and we can tell by the writing cave and the letters which Hannah Cotton was part of. You can see that there were many people who hated Bar Kokhba, who could not. I mean, Bar Kokhba was just screaming orders at him. Bar Kokhba to Yohanatan, and just yelling about stuff, and people were pissed at him and trying to hide their deeds to houses and hide their children from him and stuff like that. So Judas Maccabeus is a great man, great warrior, and again, I believe history is the inheritance of pretty much anybody who views it that way, or anybody, to all of us basically. But I know the atheists will never accept Judas Maccabeus, and I guess the Muslims wouldn't either, but for the Christians of all stripes, Protestant, Catholic, Orthodox, and the Jews, I think that he's part of our inheritance, although it's very funny that the Protestants quickly forget him and don't want to hear about him and hate the book of Maccabees just because it's not in their little Bible, even though it was in the Bible for 1,500 years before they took it out. And the Jews, I don't, why celebrate Hanukkah? I mean, Maccabees is where you get, people, well, it was written in Greek. That's what they said about the Wisdom of Solomon, and they found it in Qumran, and we know the early Christians constantly read that, and that even before that, I mean, it was in the Septuagint, and they're saying that about the Maccabees. Well, the Maccabees we can only have Greek copies, but yet they know from the writing of it that it was translated from Hebrew, like the idiosyncrasies in the language, that was a conversion from Hebrew. I think that's a kind of a BS thing. Oh, we don't have the Hebrew text, so we can't use it. Or I think it's we don't have a full Hebrew text, so we can't use it. Which, I'm sorry, is there not Aramaic in the Old Testament? Is not parts of Daniel and Micah and Malachi in Aramaic? Why not just take those parts out then? I mean, after all, that was the language of the Babylonians, and the Septuagint was the crown jewel text for the Jews for about at least 400 years, if not 600 years. And the LXX, the Septuagint, is an older tradition than the modern Masoretic text with the fire letters and everything. And then, obviously the Qumran isn't a lasting tradition, but that's a separate tradition from the Masoretic and the Septuagint text. The Maccabees was not found there, but then again, it's probably only like half of what was found there, and there are some fragments that they think are from Maccabees. I don't know if they found actually a page of Maccabees, but I know there are some things that could be from First Maccabees. Yeah, I will continue that. I believe I need to go on to chapter 4. Again, I profusely apologize, and I think I should probably even add this into the playlist. Peace to you. May God save Serbia and Syria. Take it easy. Was started because of the holiness of the people and their resistance against an occupying force and a brutal force that was trying to slay them. You know, people could make the argument for the slavery into Babylon as not being a bad thing. As Babylon, they let you keep your religion. They were multicultural. They didn't execute Zadok House. And I've never seen the Maccabees come in any other form than in the texts of our scriptures. But this is a good writing to read, and Hanukkah is coming up. And we should remember that that celebration was so I'd like to apologize. I didn't even realize this happened. Something came up and I totally forgot about it, and I was right in the middle of it. Or actually, I just started it and just started getting to the good parts, and I just cut off. And I apologize profusely for this. It's the reading of First Maccabees, and I will pick this up and finish it. And I think it's if you know any Jewish people out there, because I know Jewish people they have the celebration of Hanukkah, but they don't have the text in their Bibles. I don't know how often they read Maccabees or if they do it all. But if you know anyone, when I finish this, or when I pick up and start doing enough of it, send it to them. I'd want to know what they think about it. Because there's many people that like listening to stuff better than reading it, and I don't know how comfortable Jewish people would be with having like a Catholic or an Orthodox Bible in their